After an off day on Thursday, the Tigers prep for a weekend series against the White Sox. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the rest of September and some potential reinforcements on the way, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, September 5th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase is necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Friday. Another week in the books. Some beautiful weather. The rain. I don't know. Maybe this weekend's going to be terrible. On Thursday, we got some beautiful weather, so I'm enjoying it. Today, we're going to talk about a handful of different things. We will talk about the Tigers' potential for reinforcements on the way. I think that's an important conversation to have, not only just for the sake of, injury updates and whatnot, but we know that this organization loves the revolving door of roster moves, right? And just taking 2 or 3 roster spots and constantly, turning them over. So I think that it's important to kind of get a lay of the land of who we could see the rest of the way. And then obviously, as the games become more and more important, that just matters because you want the best players on the field. So we'll talk about that. We will also talk about a Jeff Passan of ESPN article that kind of talked about a potential, interesting factoid about Jack Flaherty. Interesting opinion, more so than a factoid, actually, on Flaherty and what his future could look like. We'll talk about Verlander because I've gotten some people asking me about that, and then we'll preview the weekend series. So we're going to start with injuries. Parker Meadows. It sounds like he will be back this weekend. Now, it sounds like. That's not it's for sure happening, at least at the time of this recording. But right now, as I record this on Thursday afternoon, it does, in fact, sound like he will be back this weekend against the White Sox. He, for whatever it's worth, says that his body has felt the best it has felt all season. I know that some people have major concerns about his offense and about what he will produce at the plate. And I think that's pretty fair given his major league track record. Like, he got called up for September a couple years ago, hit decently well, hit horribly in the first half of last year, got demoted, then came back and got hot and was a part of, that hot stretch and that crazy run the Tigers went on in the second half, in the last 2 months, really, of last season. And then this year has not hit very well, but also hasn't been on the field hardly at all. He was hurt to start the season, came back, and then got hurt again. The reason why I would tell you to, even if you are like a big Parker Meadows hater, which I've been very vocal about being the opposite of that, I am a huge advocate for him in the lineup. I think that when he is at his best and playing like he did in the last 2 months of last season, he's legitimately one of the most valuable players, all-around players on the entire roster. The reason why, to me, it doesn't really matter where your opinion of Parker Meadows lies is because it is probably going to be his roster spot is probably going to replace Trey Sweeney's. And like at the end of the day, even if he hits 200 and doesn't have a lot of power and hits 9 the rest of the season, that is still a trade-off I would make 10 times out of 10. Javi can move to short, and like Javi hasn't really been producing at all either offensively, but like he can move to short. McKinstry can play lefty short if you need a left-handed platoon there. I think that the team is just better with Parker Meadows on it in replacement of Trey Sweeney. So I am hopeful that that is the case and that he does return this weekend. But again, it is far from like, oh, you're guaranteed going to get some crazy level of production. He has to prove really still a lot. Like, he's still very young, but he has to prove that he is going to be a productive member of the lineup card every day. Because so far in this calendar year, he just hasn't consistently been that. So even defensively, which is really, I guess, the concerning or disappointing part of this season was, at a minimum, I was like, okay, even if he doesn't hit again, he's going to be an incredible defensive center fielder. He wasn't even really that. And so hopefully this, he is 100% healthy and he can come back and be a really valuable member of this team in the last month of the season here. Jose Urquidy pitched 3 innings on Tuesday. The team has said, and AJ has said, that they probably aren't going to have him in a role that is more than 3 or 4 innings, which means I can't imagine he's going to be a every 5th day, rotation piece. I think he's going to be more of a bulk reliever type of role. But I also still think there's a way to go here. His velocity is still down. And yeah, I think really my biggest point, I guess I'll say, with Urquidy is just like, ultimately at the end of the season, okay, if there's a week or 2 left in the regular season, if he is healthy, I will take him in the bullpen over several of the guys that are currently in the mix for the Detroit Tigers bullpen. Like, it's just such a thin and unproven group that, like, I find it hard to believe he's not going to at least get a look before the end of the season. But with the velo still down and still trying to stretch him out after not pitching for so long, you're probably still looking at a week or 2 until that happens. Paul Sewald, an interesting one. All this great information, by the way, is not of my own doing. Evan Petzold of The Freep came out with a fantastic article that kind of highlighted all of the injuries the Tigers had, and he talked to management and the front office and kind of got a general idea of, where the team stands on these players. So credit to him, all the information from him. We obviously talk about Evan Petzold like every single episode pretty much on this show. So all the credit in the world to Ev. Paul Sewald, it sounds like he is about to start a rehab assignment, but he is not starting one at the time of this recording, at least. So we'll see what happens there. He threw a live BP earlier this week, and apparently he looked good enough in front of coaches to at least garner, AJ Hinch. I think the quote in Petzold's article from AJ was, he's about to be competitive. So he's about to start throwing competitive games again and be on a rehab assignment. So yeah, I mean, like, this team is desperate for any proven reliever that can get swing and miss. And if Paul Sewald can be that, down the stretch, or heck, even in the postseason, then that would be fantastic. I said it yesterday, man. I don't care who it is. I really don't. I don't care if it's somebody in single A, if it's somebody that, if it's Paul Sewald, who hasn't pitched in like forever and might make his Tigers debut with like a week left in the season. I don't care. I don't care if it's someone currently on the roster, but somebody needs to step up and be a trusted high leverage reliever outside of Finnegan and Best. Okay, got a couple more injuries I want to talk about, and then we'll talk Flaherty and Verlander. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Zippix. Need a boost to power through the day without reaching for another cup of coffee or an energy drink? Well, that's where Zippix caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of the crash you get from sugary drinks, Zippix gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. And if you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got Zippix nicotine toothpicks as well. I've used the caffeine toothpicks. They sent all the hosts a ton of the caffeine toothpicks, and it's fascinating. They taste good, they're flavored, so they taste fantastic. But my roommate is a big coffee guy. He loves them. I just, have a toothpick in my mouth on the way to work while I'm driving to work. Fantastic. It gives you that extra edge without the jitters. Big meetings, long drives, even like late night, you want to, make sure you don't fall asleep during the game or again in the car or whatever. They are the best. So if you're ready to try them, go to zippixtoothpicks.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off of your first order. That's zippixtoothpicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON, Zippix Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Appreciate you all, for real. And we will, of course, be back on Monday recapping this series against the Chicago White Sox that we'll preview at the end of the show. I want to talk Matt Vierling really quickly and then Alex Cobb. Vierling seems to be, I think Petzold said that he thinks that Vierling is behind Sewald and that he is not necessarily on the verge of a rehab assignment. However, there's only a month left and they hope to get him back before the season ends. So we'll kind of keep tabs on that and see if Matt Vierling is somebody that maybe comes back, in 2 or even 3 weeks, as odd as it sounds. But that would, again, be a nice boost heading into the end of the season or postseason. And then Alex Cobb, just to put a bow on the injury talk. I don't think he's going to pitch for the Tigers. I really don't. He was with the team and did like a checkup with the staff over Labor Day weekend, so this past weekend, and not a whole lot of information is out on how that went or what the team thinks or what Cobb thinks, but I can't picture him throwing like meaningful innings for the Tigers at this point. So we'll see. Maybe he gives it like one last go and he goes back down to the minor leagues. He tries to ramp back up to being, 1 or 2 inning reliever and tries to provide something here down the stretch. But I really would not hold my breath on that. I don't think that's really in the cards. So there you go. That's really, Lang is healthy just down in the minors. Like he could come back at any moment. There's a handful of guys that really fall into that category. Brant Herter hopefully is fine and okay. Haven't seen an update on him. So hopefully he can recover well and get back sooner rather than later as well. But I do think that it is nice, at least, to have, there is the potential for 2 or even 3 of these guys to make the impact at the major league level. I'm not sure any outside of Parker are like a high end, at least have the ceiling of being a high end game changer. But I do think that, again, this pitching staff and this bullpen just needs all the help it can get. And I don't care if that comes from Paul Sewald in 2025 or Jose Urquidy in 2025 or not. I'm going to take it wherever we can get it. An interesting article written by Jeff Passan of ESPN kind of started to predict and started to really just open the door for the offseason conversation that Major League Baseball is going to have in terms of potential free agents. And he went through a lot of the players with team or player options. And so all the players that either have to opt in or opt out of their deals for 2026. Jack Flaherty obviously falls under that umbrella in Tigers land. And I think a lot of people all year have just kind of written it off as a foregone conclusion that he was going to opt in. His ERA is pushing 5. It's been around there, honestly, most of the season. And if he opts in, he gets $20 million next year. Jeff Passan disagrees, says that he believes Jack Flaherty is going to opt out of his present deal. We will obviously talk about this a lot more after the Tigers are done playing baseball games, whenever that may be. But I thought it was an interesting point made, and I wanted to get ahead of the curve a little bit and talk about it, right when the article came out. Yeah, a few different reasonings there, and I can kind of see the vision a little bit. He referenced his underlying metrics being, I guess, slightly better than his ERA indicates. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he is still getting strikeouts at a really good clip. Say what you will about the ERA and the home runs and just the run prevention in general, but he has been still a high-end strikeout pitcher. My counter to that is he also has given up a ton of barrels. His barrel rate is awful, and he doesn't keep the ball on the ground. He gives up hard contact in the air. So it's an interesting conversation. And again, one will have a lot more in the offseason itself. But I really think this is a situation where the Tigers aren't going to be heartbroken or super excited either way. And I think I'm finding myself kind of in that boat too. Like, just walk with me here. If he leaves, then I don't think the Tigers are going to chase him down and be like, okay, because if they, $20 million do, if he opts out, presumably he'd be looking for more than that, or at least that price at multiple years. I don't think the Tigers are going to be super willing to do that. This is a guy that has, in between his last two good full seasons, had a lot of bad seasons. And in those bad seasons, had a lot of injury problems. The Tigers experienced it firsthand last year. The entire first half of last season, he was getting shots to help him get through the year. So I'm not exactly sure the Tigers are going to be, and then that's not even including the fact that he has a 4.7 or a 4.8 ERA. So I don't think the Tigers are going to be super, chasing him down, begging him to come back and sign a new deal if he does opt out. But at the same time, I don't think this is a situation like, I don't know, Javi, whenever that was, 2 off seasons ago, last off season, whatever, where, he opts in and you just kind of sigh and you go, darn. You look at the rotation next year. Look at the Tigers' rotation next year. It's pretty thin. And I don't think the front office would mind if he came back. It would be probably a little bit more expensive than they'd like, but ultimately it's their own contract. They offered him that. You have Sewald, Mize, Olsen, and then some combination of Sawyer Gibson Long, unproven, Cater Montero, unproven. Not sure you want him in a rotation spot guaranteed out of camp. And then Troy Melton, as much as we love him, also unproven. Mize, great first half, terrible second half. Olsen has been injured every year of his career. Sewald, last year of his Tigers team control. So you're very thin at pitcher going into 2026, extremely. So I don't think the Tigers are too heartbroken if he comes back either. And I think I fall kind of in a similar vein there. Not throwing a parade if really either way. But I'm not going to be upset either way either. There's plenty other ways that they can utilize $20 million in terms of improving their pitching staff. But if you want to give me a guy that's been good here before, is still relatively young, and can get some swing and miss and some strikeouts, I'm not going to be heartbroken over that being in the rotation next year. It's just he shouldn't be the number 2. I don't care what he's getting paid. He shouldn't be the number 2 in 2026. That's all. The last potential reinforcement I want to talk about, Flaherty obviously isn't a reinforcement. He's already here. But I want to jump back into the reinforcement conversation and talk about something I've seen circulating the web, okay? About a potential Justin Verlander reunion still in 2025, not in 2026, still this season. Is it possible? Actually, yes. Is it likely? Definitely not. I want to preface this conversation with that. I don't want to read about why are we talking about this? It's never going to happen, etc. I'm aware. It is extremely unlikely. But it is not impossible, and I've been asked about it about 50 times this week, especially after his 10 strikeout performance. And so I think it's worth bringing up. His August ERA is 3.6. and his strikeout numbers are way up in the month of August as well. As I just stated, he had a 10 strikeout game a couple of starts ago. This year has been, to his standards, a struggle for the most part. But again, that is a 4.29 ERA for him. That's 24 starts of 4.29 ERA baseball. He threw like 120 pitches at 40 whatever years old last time out there. 4.29 ERA would comfortably be the Detroit Tigers' second best starting pitcher immediately. So in terms of like where he's at in his career, again, he's got almost a 3.5 in the month of August, and the strikeout numbers are way, way up over his last 3 or 4 weeks. How this would happen is the Giants, his current employer, would have to waive him. I don't think they're going to. However, they signed him to a 1-year deal. They are 4 games back from the wild card, although they are 9-1 in their last 10, so I've kind of made up ground there, actually. But if the Giants get to a point over the next 7 to 10 days where they just don't see themselves, they're kind of out, they fall out of the playoff picture, they're not going to make it, and they want to save a few $100,000, they could just put him on waivers and have another team pick him up, and then they're responsible for the rest of his contract. It's not going to save them a lot of money. I think it's probably, from the Giants and Giants fan perspective, way more worth it for them to just hold on to him for 3 more weeks or 4 more weeks and see if they can make a run at the postseason. Almost certainly not an option, but there's a month left. Everybody wants, I hear about wanting the Verlander reunion all the time, and he's pitching pretty darn well lately. I think there is a reality in which that is an option for them. I think he could be a waiver guy. I saw some people, maybe just baseball, I saw some people talking about that online a week or so ago. He's currently obviously still on the Giants, but we will see. I think if the Giants end up getting swept in their next 2 series, he could find himself on waivers just for them to save a few bucks at the end of the year. Okay, let's talk about September and preview this White Sox series. We will do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavor shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies and making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. So much fun to be had on the golf course, and you can now pair that with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without ever leaving the golf course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can go amp up the fun by just buying, snapping, and drinking, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that free trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters Tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in as always. Just want to go over the September schedule really quickly. It's obviously the White Sox this weekend. After that, you have the Yankees, Marlins, Guardians, Braves, Guardians again, and then the Boston Red Sox. A lot of people have been talking about, and they showed a graphic on the broadcast a couple of nights ago now, where they talked about the strength of schedule remaining. Now, the Tigers, a lot of those teams are under 500. I think that's somewhat deceiving. The Guardians could be over 500 at any moment here. They're, I think at the time that I record this, they're exactly 500. So They could easily be over 500 in one or both of those series. The Braves are not going to be 500, but are way more talented than their record lets on between injuries and just brutal pitching. They've just had a really, really bad year. The Red Sox are a playoff team right now. That's where you end the season. The Yankees are a playoff team right now, and that's what you have after this weekend series. And then the Marlins obviously are not like some giant powerhouse, but have played significantly better baseball over the last 2 months than they did in the first 2 or 3 months of the season. And actually have some really exciting young pieces on both sides of the ball. So this is the White Sox is really the only series you can point to and just go, oh, like that's that should be relatively simple to take 2 of 3 from at least. None of these other series are cakewalks, even if they're, technically under 500 teams. Something else I want to talk about before we get into this weekend series preview is that everyone's fan base is kind of like dooming, that they're all kind of doom and gloom. You look at the playoff fan bases, the Yankees fans have been having a meltdown for the better part of a month. Mets fans, complete meltdown. Every time you open we all know who I'm talking about, but like every time you open your phone. The Mariners, really the entire AL West, actually, all 3 of those teams, the Rangers, the Mariners, and the Astros, all of their fans, just an absolute heck right now. The Dodgers, the big bad $400 million Dodgers. Fans are losing it every time you go on social media because their offense is somewhat struggling. Anything can happen in the postseason, and that is, again, why I'm so big on, like, you cannot just coast into the postseason and take the division. You have to take a first-round bye because all it takes is being hot at the right time. And with reinforcements, hopefully, on their way for Detroit, the Tigers could obviously be that team. And I say that having seen the Tigers literally be that team 12 months ago. So, go take care of business. You play who you play, man. I say all the time, I hate playing like the schedule game. You play who you play, and you should go and try and beat everybody you go up against every single day. I think that with the White Sox, they are not as bad as they were last year. They are still going to approach 40 games under 500. You need to take 2 of 3 at least. Now, again, the White Sox, they're on as I record this, actually, a 4-game winning streak. I'm recording this before their game on Thursday night, so maybe that's come to an end, but they might be on a W5 heading into this ball game. They've really just beat up on the Twins a lot lately, who are terrible and sold at the deadline, obviously, as we know. They're still mostly losing to everyone else. They lost, I think, 3 of 4 to the Yankees. They've lost a lot to the Royals lately. It's really just they're beating up on the Twins, who are trying to be as bad as the White Sox for some reason. So go take care of business. Pitching matchups, you got Flaherty versus Shane Smith. Shane Smith has pitched against the Tigers 2 or 3 times already this season, and it's been pretty darn good this year. So that's going to be an interesting way to kick off this series. Then you have Martin Perez against Tarek Skubal. I feel like the Tigers haven't legitimately hit Perez in like 5 years, and his velo hasn't been above like 90 in about 5 years either. Just the soft tossing lefty curse strikes again. And then you have Davis Martin against Charlie Morton, the Martin versus Morton Bowl on Sunday for the series finale. Go win a series. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back on Monday recapping said series. I appreciate you all greatly for tuning in. As always, peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. And I'll catch you on Monday, baby. Go Tigers.